Thank you for tuning in. Today, I'll be speaking to my colleague Matt Penfold about three common pitfalls to consider when you're moving to Gibraltar from the UK. Um, so, Matt, in the last 5 6 years, you've processed so many applications from UK nationals making Gibraltar their home. So you've come across all kinds of questions and issues. What are in your humble opinion, what are the three most common pitfalls that a Brit needs to avoid before moving to Gibraltar?
Okay, thanks, Paul. Well, we're going to cover three today, but that's not to say that there are only three. There are a lot more pitfalls and hurdles to come over and mistakes that you want to ensure that you don't make for a seamless transition from the UK to Gibraltar. But the first one is one that I've seen many times. I know you have as well, Paul, is regarding inheritance tax. Now, inheritance tax is a little bit in the news as we speak because of the recent changes to the UK budget. Um, and previously, the UK operated on what they call a domicile concept, and now we're moving to a residency concept. I won't go into detail. That's maybe for another webinar. But the key is a lot of people incorrectly assume, well, they know that there's no inheritance tax in Gibraltar. That's the great news. And people think, well, I moved to Gibraltar, then there's no inheritance tax for my estate. That's not the case. So the very recent changes in the UK and they're going through the consultation period, but it looks like we're moving to a residency-based inheritance tax system, which in some aspects is a lot clearer. It means that you will still be exposed to UK inheritance tax for 10 years after you exit the UK. So that's, I guess, the bad news is. The other positive news is there is a possibility to plan against this. Either mitigate that inheritance tax bill, even eradicate it in full. And of course, it's the sort of conversation that people don't necessarily want to have. Is talking about your debt, but it's an important one to have with a company like ourselves who understand the UK and the Gibraltar side. So that's the first one. UK inheritance tax. You really need to continue to plan against this. And of course, there's been recent changes, so you need to work with someone who understands those changes as well. Number two, and this is a very common one, and this is those who think they can get away with living in Spain but being tax resident in Gibraltar. So of course, because of the geographical location of Gibraltar, we're attached to the southern Spain, and property tends to be a little bit cheaper in Spain. Of course, there's a lot more space, but taxes are lower in Gibraltar. So some people think, okay, well, I'll base myself in Gibraltar, but I'm really living in Spain. That is a dangerous approach to take. Firstly, Spain has their own residency rules, and they have two rules. One, if you spend more than 183 days, you'll be a Spanish tax resident. The other is if Spain is your center of vital and economic interest, then you'll be taxed as a Spanish tax resident. I'll give you a bit of an example with that one. So you may have a couple, they've got two children. One half of the couple works in Gibraltar. They have a studio or one bed flat in Gibraltar. They spend Monday to Friday in Gibraltar, and then they spend the weekends in Spain with their spouse who doesn't work and the kids who go to Spanish school. They live in their villa in Marbella or Soto Grande. The spouse who works in Gibraltar, they're spending less than 183 days in Spain. So they may feel, okay, I'm not Spanish tax resident. That's not true. Spain will look through that, realize, your family is in Spain, really your main property in Spain. They will catch you and they will tax you for that. So it's very important that if you want to be Gibraltar tax resident, and enjoy the tax benefits of that, you actually have to be living in Gibraltar. Of course, you can spend time in Spain, you can spend weekends there, you can have holidays there, you can have day trips there, but you need to be very careful with how you spread your time. And the third one, Paul, is not reassessing your UK pension plans when you relocate to Gibraltar. So if you're already in retirement or you're planning to spend your retirement in Gibraltar, then your pensions will be a large part of that. That's how you're going to fund your retirement. And it is vital that you assess your pensions and the various options that are available to you. All of those will have different tax implications. Again, we've seen changes in the UK budget with regards to pensions and those wanting to move those overseas. But one thing that remains is if you move to Gibraltar, you still retain the option of transferring your UK pension to a Gibraltar Cure-Ops without paying a 25% overseas tax charge, and you can benefit from the taxation that's much reduced on the income from a Gibraltar Cure-Op. So there's that. There's other options, but just keeping your pensions as they are and paying higher levels of tax really doesn't make sense. So as part of your relocation, you should be looking at your financial affairs in total, and reassessing your UK pension plans is definitely one of those areas that you need to look at. Those are the 3 pitfalls that we're highlighting today. There's many more that we can discuss on a one-to-one basis.
I think what's abundantly clear, Matt, if I may just add regarding
Please.
point 3, post UK autumn budget, is that the importance of financial planning, tax planning, and retirement planning has never, ever been more important than it is today, because the changes that are taking place in the UK can potentially impact a UK national after leaving the UK. And if you want to protect your estate from taxation, to make sure that there's a transfer of intergenerational wealth, to maximize your income and lead a great lifestyle, it's really important that this matter is addressed. Very often we find that people don't want to talk about death because it's a morbid subject and inheritance tax. They don't want to discuss things which are uncomfortable to them. But I think we've always had that item, inheritance tax, and on the agenda from the beginning. And we've experienced firsthand, people moving to Gibraltar, then passing away within 18 months. We've had 2 cases recently. And, now is more important than ever. Now, anyone moving across, before they move, they should really engage with a professional that understands the nuances of cross-border tax, financial, and retirement planning, and that can add considerable value and protect their assets and maximize the assets that build over a lifetime. And if they don't appreciate the importance of tax planning, then I think it really you really question the motive for moving across, beside the lifestyle, clearly. But you can't neglect your finances and then hope for the best.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a big mistake.
No, definitely. And it's a really, really good point, actually, because we've always emphasized that you should reevaluate your finances with a professional who knows what they're talking about on both sides. But yeah, the UK budget has made that even more important to do so. And inheritance tax is always an interesting one, because often people refer to it as a voluntary tax, don't they? And that's effectively what you're doing by taking no action. You're accepting that, okay, your estate will be hit by, this 40% where you're over the limit. So there's a lot of opportunities to plan, and not just against inheritance tax, against other taxations. And, if you're going to move to somewhere like Gibraltar, even if you're moving for the lifestyle reasons, why wouldn't somebody do that and pay less tax in a legitimate way? That would never make sense to me, but I don't
Well,
know.
they say two inescapable truths are death and taxes, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think this has never been so important as it is today.
yeah.
With with a government that wants to tax anything that breathes and moves. So yeah, thank you, Matt. That has been enlightening and
Perfect.
fascinating. So appreciate very much your input, and I hope this is of value to our listeners.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everybody.